And then we're going to wrap up with one last speaker. Thank you so much for coming and thanks for your patience.
Thanks very much, Frankie. Frankie just at the last minute allowed me up to speak, and I appreciate that, and thank you, Frankie. I just went outside RTE, and I'd like to just reflect on what we're saying about bias. We go back to the very start of the protests when they called Brian Dobson live on 6-1 News, called 2U protesters idiots. They never apologised properly. Then we moved on to October, when well over 100,000 people were on our streets. These guys who have an economic department can't count. They reported it as 10,000, 20,000 until they were forced into it by social media to admit there was 100,000 plus. In November there was 200,000 plus, and the BBC told us in December there was 300,000. So just to remind these guys in there, you look at the makeup of RTE, and just to let you know if you don't know already, Rory, are you listening? Rory is Simon Coveney's brother of Fine Gael, and Rory is an advisor to the Director General, and he probably advises him to lie when it talks about Irish Water protesters. So that's Simon. And then we look at Miriam, and Miriam who interviews protesters, nice little sweet Miriam, you see. Miriam's brother is a barrister, and Miriam's brother, I remember watching Miriam on prime time one night interviewing protesters. She was interviewing them at night time, and the next morning her brother was prosecuting them in the High Court. That was what Miriam's brother was doing. So if that's not bias, she should have stepped aside. But I want to issue a few challenges. Do you know why Joe says come and talk to Joe? I tried to talk to Joe about something a while ago, and it's out there in the media, and I'd ask the guards to pay attention to this one, right? Gemma O'Doherty, an Irish independent news journalist, went to the house of Martin Callaghan, the ex-police commissioner, to talk to him about getting these penalty points squashed, right? Now, I went to talk to Joe because it appeared in the Guardian newspaper in Britain, because Gemma was sacked when she did that. She was sacked by a fella called Ray, who was the editor-in-chief of Irish Independent, for having the audacity to knock on the door of Martin. I'd like to ask Joe, why will he not talk about Martin Callaghan's penalty points, who he got squashed? Why was it when the whistleblowers was made dirt of by Martin Callaghan, by the other fella, Shatter or Shit or whatever you call him, by him as well? I'd like to ask RTE, why don't they ask them questions? Rory, are you listening? I'd like to issue another challenge to them, and another challenge of questions to be asked. They had Paul Murphy on the Late Late Show, right? And we all know, as far as we're concerned, Paul Murphy was ambushed. He was ambushed on the Late Late Show by Ryan, supposedly the investigative journalist Ryan. I'd ask the Ryan, right, Paul is a politician. Paul is up there to be questioned, and that's fair enough. But I challenge RTE, if you're listening, I'm challenging you to bring Dennis O'Brien onto next week's Late Late Show. To ask Dennis O'Brien about his ownership of the media being anti-democratic. I want him to talk to Dennis O'Brien about owning GMC Sierra, owning the meters, owning the whole fucking country. That's what he does. I want to say, RTE, listen, bring on Dennis O'Brien and ask him the hard questions. But we know they won't do that. They won't do that. They're not fair. They are biased. And until they have Dennis O'Brien, who paid a corrupt payment to a Fine Gael politician whose brother is advising the Director General of RTE, until they have Dennis O'Brien on RTE, they're just a biased station against the people and owned by Fine Gael and Labour. Thank you.